I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alexander?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Human?
Yes.
Lentine?
Here.
Lewis?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
O'Toole.
Here.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Alexander?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Human?
Yes.
Lentine?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
We will move to reports. Mayor?
Yes, I'd like to honor and salute our veterans on Veterans Day this Wednesday, November 11th. So it's tomorrow. So appropriate. We got NOPEC is celebrating their 15 years of service this next year, and so this is our Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council. I do have a packet upstairs in the conference room next to my office that contains a number of initiatives that they're planning to do this next year. So the president of council and myself attended the annual meeting today, and they had presented a nice package of initiatives, and we'll try to get that information out to everyone. Also, I wanted to mention that our breakfast with Santa is being planned for December the 5th. Tickets are available at the rec department. So, and December 5th is coming quicker than you think. So that concludes my report for this evening. I'm glad to comment as we go along.
Okay. Council's holding something too. Do you remember that meeting? Do you remember the Council of Councils is planning their meeting also gathering on December 3rd? The Thursday? You don't know
Was
about
it? No, not
Oh.
quite sure.
All right.
Council of Councils is your bailiwick
Yeah,
now.
you're right. I do it later now. All right. Fire Chief Human?
Thank you, Council President Henry, Mayor Roche, members of council, members of the community. Our total calls in Division of Fire are at 1528 as of October 31st. That's an average of 5 calls for service each shift. We're down 4.3% compared to the same reporting period in 2014. Our EMS calls are at 1,221. We're dead even when compared to the same reporting period in 2014. EMS calls account for 80% of all calls. Our 3 area nursing homes account for 22% of total call volume. Our fire service calls are at 307, which is 20% of total call volume. Actually, that's where the biggest decrease is. We're down 21% compared to the same reporting period in 2014. Simultaneous calls, that's calls that happen at the same time, occur about 14% of the time. We've had 214 simultaneous calls this year. In the area of mutual aid, we've received mutual aid from our neighboring communities 34 times, and we've given mutual aid 76 times. We've actually given mutual aid a little bit more than last year. Last year we'd given mutual aid 58 times. In the area of EMS billing for transports is at $508,000. That's a decrease of 4.6% over the same reporting period in 2014. We were at $533,000 this time last year. Revenues for EMS transport, what we've collected, are at $278,000 so far. That's a decrease of 7.1% over the same reporting period last year. We were at $299,000. The collection rate for EMS billing is at 55%. We were at 56% this time last year. Our supplemental staffing expenses, our year-to-date overtime in 2015, we're at $95,535. That's a 1.4% increase when compared to the same reporting period last year. We were at $94,258. Overtime includes shift coverage and off-duty training related to regional agreements. Contributing factors for the increase in overtime expenses include backfill staffing of a firefighter who's been on leave since July for a non-work-related issue. Year-to-date supplemental staffing costs overall, which includes overtime and part-time, is at $106,000. In fiscal year 14, we were at $120,000, so actually overall we're under $14,000, which is an overall decrease of 12%. We have a Heart Saver CPR course scheduled for Monday, December 7th at the Richmond Heights Fire Station from 6:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. A Division of Fire, in partnership with University Hospital Richmond Medical Center, offers bi-monthly CPR courses to residents of Richmond Heights. The Heart Saver CPR AED course is a classroom video-based instructor-led course that teaches adult CPR and AED use, as well as how to relieve choking on an adult. Call Chief Newman at 216-383-6304 if interested. Class size is limited to 12 students per class. These classes are free to residents of Richmond Heights. This course is for the general public. It is not the health care provider course. And as always, I'm encouraging everyone in Richmond Heights to stay informed by signing up for Ready Notify. Ready Notify is a mass notification system used to notify citizens, residents, and businesses of emergency situations, non-emergency events, and to provide information about necessary actions. When you sign up in the system, you'll receive emails as well as have the opportunity to choose how you want to receive additional messages. Messages can be delivered in the following ways: cell phone, home phone, work phone, text messaging, and even fax. Participation in Ready Notify is voluntary. A valid email and phone number will be needed to sign up. During the registration process, you'll be asked to provide information about yourself, such as your address, your primary language, and if you require any special assistance during an emergency. To register, please go to the link www.readynotify.cuyahogacounty.us or go to the Richmond Heights webpage at www.richmondheightsohio.org or call me at 216-383-6304. That's all for my report, and I'll answer any questions.
Mr. Alexander?
Chief, the 214 simultaneous.
Yes, sir.
In that 214, there also include the first spot out with the chase vehicle, and we had called, we may send our own second spot out, which would not have a chase vehicle along the way.
Yes.
That's what's in that number. In other words, could you also track if a resident calls? What I really want to know is if a resident calls and it ends up being Highland Heights or Euclid or Southampton. In other words, that I guess has to be in that 34 number somewhere, right?
Yes, sir. In other words, if we had a simultaneous call where we actually had to call one of our mutual aid.
That's the number I'm really.
Yes, sir.
If that, to me, if that number gets high, then that's a problem. Because I think, our residents expect that when they call, that the squad that comes to pick them up is a Richmond squad. That's kind of a number that I would like to know. What is that? Is it 10 pounds, 8 pounds? Because I don't think it's all 34. It's not even close to that, right?
It is not, and actually the mutual aid received, those numbers are more for filling out the structural fire responses when we have additional companies from other communities come in to fill out the comps for structural fire responses, and even with that, that number is way down.
The number that we, in other words, that an outside squad would pick somebody up is pretty low.
It's very, very low, and I can give you those exact numbers also. But yes, and that chase vehicle has actually dropped those numbers down from 48 in 2014 to 34, just because we have that chase vehicle available to go to that second call that we receive as well. You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Lentine?
Question, Chief. What is the proper and recommended way to get into the the fire department? The front door, I realize it's also the men's living quarters, and you just don't want to walk in and do that unannounced and all that. When you go to the police department, there's a receptionist area right at the front door, just about, and you could ask for whoever you might want to see. What do you recommend, and how do you want us to approach the building when we have business or to enter your department?
Actually, the best way to enter the fire department is on the the Highland Road side. There's a main entrance on the Highland Road side and in the front door, and there's a telephone up there that all you have to do is pick it up, and the dispatcher answers. And that way, you're...
The outer door is always unlocked?
Yes, the outer door is always... Yeah, and the dispatcher always answers. That phone, all you have to do is pick it up, and she answers. Because sometimes the guys are out on calls, and at least you have immediate awareness of the guys are in the station or not. During normal business hours, the guys are actually on that upper level on the Highland Road side of the station anyway, so they're generally in those offices up on the second floor, or I am during normal business
I
hours.
guess my second question, maybe it's to the mayor. What is the protocol for a council person or a resident or somebody? Do we go through you as the chief to talk to an individual? I'm talking about something general, nothing of any great details, but you might have a concern about something. Instead of me going right up to one of the firefighters, go through you, the officer in charge, the mayor, who do I?
Oh my gosh, you can always call the fire station with questions for the firefighters, but it's always good to talk to the line supervisor, which is known as the lieutenant in the station. Always a good place to call. But my office is always open as well. But you can always call the fire station direct. A good place to always start is the company officer, who's always on duty 24 hours a day, and they call him the lieutenant. But I'm always there too. I'm always connected. If it's after hours by my cell phone, you can always call me. Yeah, never stepping on toes.
Mr. O'Toole?
Chief, we're about to embark upon this thing we call the budget for 2016, and my sense tells me that the amount of money we're taking in from the ambulance fund is going down. Could you provide for us for our next finance committee meeting the amount we billed and collected over the last 4 or 5 years?
Yes, sir. I actually have those numbers with me this evening.
So we could see whether or not it's actually going down, or whether or not, because I know it's an important tool that we use to buy new engines, new rescue squads, and many of the things that we do buy for the firemen. So I just want to get a handle on that for our budgeting process, and I'm sure you'll share that with Mitch if he doesn't already know that information.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mihalik and I, in fact, we track that quite closely, and we always have that readily available. We'll bring that to the Finance Committee meeting with us.
Thank you, Chief. You don't need to come unless you want to. You could give it to Mitch. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. We will move to Police Chief Rowe.
Thank you, Madam President, members of council, and Tony, Shelley. Our Part 1 crimes so far this year compared to last year are within 11, so there hasn't been any drastic change there. Our calls for service are up 7%. Our reports are up 4%. Arrests are up 25%. CAT entries so far this year are at 26,483. Our traffic and parking enforcement continues to be way above previous years, and I think there is some relationship between that and having an additional full-time person for quite some time. And with the second one on, I believe that we'll probably be maintaining that as opposed to going back to where we were before. But it's currently up 46%, or 866 citations. And that has resulted in a increase in the fines from Lyndhurst Court to $15,340, which is about a 21% increase. Total calls for service from the mall are at 5% of our total calls for service, and the mall accounts for 13% of our arrests. Both of those figures are kind of maintaining themselves, probably because of the total number of calls and total number of arrests. Those figures haven't moved at all, so it's been pretty consistent. There's been a general decline in that type of activity up at the mall, specifically when Macy's left, because they were very active with their loss prevention. And I know Penny's had a couple of loss prevention officers up there that were very active, and they are no longer there. So we have not had as much activity up at the mall as we have in the past relative shoplifters. I would like to thank Fire Chief Newman and Firefighter Dave Grice for making arrangements so that our entire department could get update their 2-year certification for CPR and AED. That is a requirement that we have. It's also a requirement that we have to meet for our annual jail inspection, which we did have last week, and by the Bureau of Adult Detention, and we did get 100% compliance for our 12-day facility. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Building Commissioner Bill Siebel.
Thank you, Madam President, Mayor Roach, and members of council, and rest of the city staff. I wanted to start out my very brief report tonight by mentioning that in addition to Veterans Day, November 10th is also the birthday of the United States Marine Corps. So I'd like to say happy birthday to my former employers. Semper Fi. We continue to maintain a high degree of enforcement on our apartments, our large apartment projects. You know that for the last several months we've been trying to bring the condition of the buildings back to some semblance of good repair and a high degree of safety. I wanted to report that that's still working. All of the apartment administrations seem to be cooperating. Richmond Park did sell during these last couple of weeks. They have a new buyer. The purchase is expected to be closed this coming week. The buyer is local, which is a good thing. We won't have to deal with somebody from Park Avenue or from Colorado or whatever. The buyer, we're told, is from Beechwood. We have the name of the buyer right now, but it's simply a fictitious name that we know nothing about. So when we learn something about him, I'll be happy to let everybody know. But our enforcement efforts have a lot to do with the resolution on tonight's agenda for the sprinkler consultant, Arthur Tiroli, who will be helping us in our efforts. And last, the next public hearing for the school barricades issue is this coming Monday at the Department of Commerce in Columbus, and I'll be going down there to attend and testify to that. As I was mentioning at one of the meetings, the language that the Ohio Board of Building Standards has come up with for adoption insofar as the use of barricades includes some enforcement efforts by the local building official, which I believe might result in pitting us against other members of the city staff or the school district, and I'm not sure that that is going to be an absolutely good idea. It might also pit the law director against those people if we had to take enforcement efforts. So we'll be going down there and taking part in that public hearing, and I'll report back and to
as I usually do, as to what happens. And that's the extent of my report for tonight, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Finance Director Mitch McHale.
Thank you, Madam President, Mayor Roach, members of council. Just briefly, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'd like to update you on a couple of things that I've spoken about at previous meetings. The first being the search for the payroll clerk. We've received a good response from the ads that we placed in the Sun newspapers. We've identified some promising candidates, and we'll be interviewing the first of those tomorrow morning. So I'm hoping to have some good news in a short period of time about that. With regard to the audit, and some of you may or may not have received the email that I sent out earlier today, we had a meeting with representatives of the Auditor of State, the mayor and I did last Thursday afternoon, and sort of went over, their notes about the audit. There are some things that they've suggested I make a couple of journal entries, and I'm in the process of doing that, and also I'm relaying some responses to some comments that they had that are going to be in the body of the audit. We have tentatively scheduled the exit conference, and from the responses I've gotten, I see that it's worked out. It's going to work out for most, and hopefully all of you, for next Tuesday, and that's at 6 o'clock p.m. We tried to schedule it prior to the committee meeting so it'll be convenient for everybody. I might remind you that this is, according to Ohio Revised Code, a non-public meeting, and the discussions are confidential until such time as the audit is released. And that's all I have for this evening, unless there are any questions.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Alexander.
When will you make the journal entries? Do we have to approve them, or
I'm sorry?
do we have to approve the journal entries that you're going to do, or what?
It's something that has to be signed off by myself, that the journal entry is going to be made in compliance with the Auditor of State. So,
In the past, we've made a couple of those, and we ended up creating 5 more problems.
mhm.
They understand. They're the ones asking for this, correct?
Right.
Any questions before we move on? Okay, we'll go to the Service Department, Donald Bernisky.
Thank you, Madam President, Mayor Roach, and Council. Mine is hopefully very boring compared to everybody else's. Word on the street is leaves, 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 and more leaves, and we're picking them up, and we've been through the city 4 times over. I've had several calls from residents wondering why we're going through so fast, because they can't get them out. Like they said, trucks leave, by the time they get the leaves out again, we've already been through their house the second time. That's a good thing, and some of our people have been running into residents in the stores in the area, and they've been wondering if we hired a whole bunch of new employees or something, but it's been going very well. And weather's been helping us on that side of it, so I think by Thanksgiving we'll be good.
Does that mean you're putting your truck up? Is that looking pretty good to you? Is that what you mean?
What do you mean?
Putting the leaf truck up by Thanksgiving, is that what you mean, or?
Oh, leaf truck's out there, our new one.
I know, but you say you'll be looking pretty good. What do you mean by that?
Well, we'll be pretty much caught up on a lot of these. They all fell down at one time, which was a mess for us, so most of the people who hadn't had weather on weekends to get them out there. And we're catching them very quickly.
Thank you.
Really good. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Mr. O'Toole?
I had a call from a resident just before I got here tonight. You remember the lady whose trash we missed on Douglas? Well, she had set the stuff back, but she mentioned that her trash did get picked up again this week. So could you send one of your guys over tomorrow? If you don't mind. Or I could pick it up. I've done it. If you could send it to me.
I don't know how this was.
That was one black bag, so maybe it was a mistake for the, no, for the recycling. That might be,
A black bag?
I will check it.
Recycle?
that.
I don't know. All right, thank you. Mr. Courtney, city engineer.
The repaving of Beverly Hills has been completed as part of the road program, as has the center line crack filling on Richmond Road all the way from Lyndhurst to the city of Newport. Next up will be the striping of that. And we've received grading plans for 2 more houses at Highland Ridge.
I'd like to thank Lee. I had several calls to Beverly Hills. They're pretty happy down there. Thank you.
The next complaint will be speeding more than lightning, because it's very different than it was before.
Okay, I'll call you on that one.
Great. Thank you. Any comments? Okay.
How are we doing with the homes being demolished on the gas station? I know Crystal's not here tonight. Do we have any word on that?
Yeah,
Mayor?
wanted to mention that we should excuse Crystal. She got caught returning from the wedding ceremony in Miami. I guess there's a suspicious package. And a lot of the flights got canceled, or her flight got canceled.
A suspicious package was in her suit?
No. I figured you might say that. No,
Oh, I just
it was a
wondered.
suspicious package somewhere in the airport that caused a lot of delays there, I understand. And she got caught up in it.
Do we know anything more about it?
There's not too much happening. We're signing three agreements. Todd kind of reviewed. They're ready for signature for proceeding with the
Demolition?
the demolition of the.
So it's a little bit like the post office. It's just,
Yes.
it's
Just
on
caught
the
up
list, but
in
it's not.
the litigation, not litigation, but legal ease of trying to get contracts.
We're dealing with the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the county, the Cuyahoga County Land Reutilization Commission, and the city. And they all have different requirements for this money that we're getting. So there was a last-minute requirement from US EPA that certain of these documents be changed to reflect what they were requiring. So we had to go back through everything and make changes. We've done that, and we're ready to have circulating for signatures on 3 documents to get this program going, and the land bank, which is the Land Reutilization Corporation, will be acting as our agent and supervising all of this. So I think we're on track, and I can't promise you when it will start coming down, but we're trying to contact. All on the same page.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The only audience is Mr. Michelli. No questions? All right, then we will move to old business.
Ordinance 90, 2015, introduced by Mayor Roach, third reading. An ordinance adopting new chapter 184 of the codified ordinances of the city of Richmond Heights, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
I think we decided to hold this, didn't we? We're going to hold it 90-20.
Under new business, Resolution 97, 2015, introduced by Alexander, first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a consulting agreement with Tiroli and Associates and Arthur J. Tiroli for the review of fire sprinkler plans submitted to the Division of Building.
Mayor, Mr. Alexander, do you have comments?
I'll have our building inspector comment.
We have numerous issues going on with our large apartment projects right now, insofar as modifications to their fire sprinkler piping, and Mr. Tiroli will be used as a consultant to advise us as to the proper design to implement on these projects.
Move for suspension.
Alexander?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Human?
Yes.
Lentine?
Yes.
Lewis? Yes. Morgan?
Yes.
Alexander? O'Toole.
Yes.
Move for passage.
Second.
Alexander,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Cuman,
Yes.
Fontaine,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Resolution 97, 2015 passes unanimously.
Resolution number 98, 2015, introduced by Alexander, first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with MJH Contractors for certain road work to be completed at the intersection of Rush and Chardon Roads and declaring emergency.
Mr. Alexander, do you have comments?
This is, there's a contractor that was working up there, and we needed a little bit of work done on the shoulder by Brush and Chardon, and this was a very reasonable price, so that's why we're doing this. Move for suspension.
Second.
Alexander,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Cuman,
Yes.
Fontaine,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Cuman,
Yes.
Fontaine,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Resolution 98, 2015 passes unanimously.
Resolution number 99, 2015, introduced by O'Toole, first reading. A resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county fiscal officer, declaring an emergency.
O'Toole, will you like to comment?
I sure would. This resolution certifies the various tax rates that have been instituted to fund our government, and it's something that we do every year, and basically puts into the record the things that need to happen so that we can collect the money to pay the bills that we run up as a city government. So I will move for suspension.
Second.
Alexander,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Fontaine,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Move for passage.
Second.
Alexander,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Cuman,
Yes.
Fontaine.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
O'Toole.
Yes.
Resolution 99, 2015 passes unanimously. No known additions? Anybody has any additions? Otherwise, there is a couple things in terms of correspondence. The NOCA, Northeast Ohio City Council Association, is having a meeting this November 12th. The guest speaker is David Gilbert, and the topic is the 2016 Republican National Convention and its impact on Northeast Ohio. It's at the Doubletree Hilton, and starting at 6 o'clock. Registration is 6 o'clock dinner. And then on December 3rd, Hillcrest Council of Councils from 5:30 to 7:30 is having a gathering where councils, members, and their spouses can attend. So I'll remind you of that again later. Other than that, any comments, questions? All right. Meeting adjourned.